Welcome back, Fright Night friends, to another wonderful episode of Scary Movie Fright Night. And A24 did it again. Ari Aster did it again. We have a good episode for you today. We're going to talk about some of the most gruesome and impactful scenes that just like burned into our brain. We're going to talk a little bit about Ari Aster. We're going to try to find some parallels with Midsommar, and then talk about family drama and family trauma.
That's going to be great. This is Scary Movie Fright Night,
a podcast about two guys who just watch scary movies. I'm Chris, and I love scary movies.
And I'm Sam, and I hate scary movies. My body just shook. Give me the heebie-jeebies. No, don't. All you have to do is stay inside in your bed, and then you won't get murdered. Oh. Okay. Now you have that recorded.
So here we are. This week, we're talking about Hereditary. It was under the theme paranormal horror, which was one of our favorite themes from last season. And you know, Sam and I haven't talked about it, but he sent me a little text that was like, "This is scary.
Can't wait to talk about it."
Yeah. So either you were gaslighting me, or we have a lot to talk about.
Did you think it was scary?
I did. We'll get into it more. I kind of have a yes, no, yes feeling. It was kind of like on, off, on for me.
Okay. All right.
Like the first third-ish, I was there. There was the middle's kind of like a slow burn, and I was like, I'm kind of bored. I also was very mentally preoccupied during the time. But usually watching a movie, like, it doesn't matter if I'm mentally preoccupied, I'm in it. But then towards the end again, I was back in. So yeah, okay. Anyway, we'll talk more about it.
Yeah,
But first, so Hereditary came out in 2018, directed and written by Ari Aster, our bestie from Midsommar, who we don't really know, but we think he's our bestie. Starring Toni Collette, Millie Shapiro, and Gabriel Byrne. Funny that his last name is Byrne because he got the burn.
I didn't think about that, but that's pretty funny.
I didn't either until just now.
Also, what was the name of the actor who plays the son? Alex Wolff.
Alex Wolff, yeah. IMDb gave it a 7.3 out of 10, which, IMDb never goes above 7 point anything, it seems like. And Rotten Tomatoes score of 90% with an audience score of 70.
Wow.
So we do this recap every time, and it's usually for the audience, but we usually benefit a little bit from it. But honestly, it's been a minute since I watched this. So Sam, what happened? Because I'm a little foggy. Why don't you tell us what happened?
Yeah. Okay, so here's the story. It centers around the family, the four family members. Annie, the mother, who is a miniature artist, like she builds like doll houses and like miniature scenes.
She's not just
she's not a miniature artist. And then, which was really interesting. We can talk more about that. But then her husband, who is a psychiatrist, Steve, their 16-year-old son, Peter, and their 13-year-old daughter, Charlie. So the movie starts.
Charlie was 13? Wow.
Yeah. What, did you think she was younger?
She seemed
young. Yeah.
She seemed young.
Yeah. Also, well, we'll get into why that's funny.
Right.
So the movie starts with a family funeral. It's the grandmother. Annie's mother has died. We kind of learn that she has this like kind of secretive, mysterious background. The mother's like, why are so many people at this funeral? I don't know who these people are. Annie starts, for some reason, lying to her family. She says she's going to the movies, but she's actually sneaking out and going to like a grief group grief thing. Therapy. Yeah. So we
Scandalous. Sneaking out to get some therapy.
Right.
Scandalous.
Little family lies. We learned that she and her mother had a very fraught relationship until her daughter Charlie was born. And then her mother was very involved in raising Charlie. So this is important.
Overly involved, one might say.
Yes. Now, the first big shocking scene of the movie, which I know we're going to have to really pick apart.
Oh, God.
So the son, Peter, goes to like a high school party. Their mom makes him take his little sister, and his sister has a nut allergy. And while he's not paying attention because he's off getting high with his friends, she eats something with nuts in it, and she goes into anaphylactic shock. So she can't breathe. Now, he knows what's happening, freaks out, takes her. They get in the car and he's like racing to the hospital. She's like gasping for air. Obviously, he's freaking out. She like leans out of the window of the car trying to like breathe. And he swerves the car to avoid a dead animal in the middle of the road. And something happens. We don't see it at this point in time, but like she goes quiet and we know something is really wrong.
Oh no, we see it. They show it.
But we didn't see the decapitation part. Like we didn't see that until later, right?
No. You're right.
Yeah,
But we saw the impact.
We saw the impact.
Anyway,
you know she's fucked.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah.
I have way more to talk about that scene. That's the most memorable thing from. I watched this 2-3 years ago, and that was like that stuck in my head. Anyway, we'll pick it apart later.
We'll pick it apart. So basically, he drives home. He's in total shock and like doesn't know what to do. So he just like parks the car, goes in the house, goes to bed, doesn't say a thing. The next morning, the mother like finds her daughter's dead body in the car and of course freaks out. And then it cuts away and we see her head like in the road where the accident happened the night before, covered in flies. So at this point we're like, oh my God, this is fucked.
And ants, right?
Ants. Oh, was it ants? Not flies. It was ants. I'm sorry.
I'm sure there were flies there too.
Probably both. Yeah. So the family starts to fracture. Peter, the son, gets like, he's like racked with guilt. The mother's obviously feeling like really bitter and resentful towards her only now living child. And the father's trying to like mediate the conflict between the two. Okay. So Annie is at her support group and she meets this woman who's very important named Joan. Joan. Like is like, oh yeah, I lost a child once too, but you could do a seance and just talk to your dead child. Like red flag number one. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I learned this from a friend. I'll just teach you now.
Yeah.
Here's a pamphlet. Just read it. Just do it.
Just read the pamphlet. Like just try a seance.
Yeah. Light the candle. Say, talk to me. Right?
Like, yes. Oh, big talk to me vibes. Okay.
Yeah.
So apparently the seance worked and Annie's like, oh, let me just like tell my husband and son about this and we can just talk to our daughter now. So they do. They attempt a seance at home and it obviously strange things are happening. Like objects are flying around and Annie starts speaking in her daughter's voice and the rest of her family's like, bad juju. We should not be doing this. So, okay, here's where it gets more interesting. The mother discovers a photo album with her mother, the grandmother, the matriarch of the family. And the photo album has pictures of that lady Joan who taught her how to do a seance, and she's like, "Whoa, hold up!" Yes, who the actress who plays Aunt Lydia, Ann Dowd. She's like, "Wait,
which is the second movie this season that she's been in."
That is, she was in
Exorcist Believer.
Exorcist Believer. She has I really love her as an actress, but she definitely has something about her that works really well in these movies.
Yeah.
She's getting a little suspicious at this point. Her mother had been referred to as like the Queen Lee or something in this photo album. And there's all this stuff in there about this like demon king, Paimon, who wants to inhabit the body of a male host and all this stuff. She finds her mother's body in the attic. That's disgusting. Peter, the son, is at school. He gets possessed. He starts like banging his head on the table. Major talk to me vibes.
Yeah.
So fast forward to the end of the movie. There's other things that like happen, but getting to the end here, basically Annie accidentally, she like throws this like cursed notebook in the fire and her husband lights on fire. So he dies when he gets burnt.
Gabriel Burns.
Gabriel Burns. He sure does. Wow. Couldn't be more perfect casting there. And then the members of this cult that her mother led are like at the house naked. She kind of gets possessed and starts chasing her son around the house into the attic. He's like trying to wake himself up from this dream. She's like floating in the air and she uses a wire to like slice off her own head. We like watch it happening slowly.
I gotta talk about that too. That's the sound. Yep. It was that's
very visceral.
Rough. Yeah.
Now I didn't fully understand the ending as it was happening, but here's what happened. Peter, the son, like gets freaked out and like jumps out of the attic window, hits the ground. He dies. We see this like wispy spirit thing like go into him, and then he comes alive again.
You kind of see a shadow wisp away, which I think was like his soul.
That was him leaving, and then the other one was okay. So then the final scene is him going into the treehouse in the backyard where his sister used to play. Inside, he finds all these members of the cult that are like on the ground worshiping this like mannequin, which has his dead sister's head on top of it. Yeah. His mother's now decapitated body is worshiping it. His grandmother's decapitated body is also worshiping it. And our lovely friend from group therapy, what's her name? Joan.
Aunt Lydia. Oh,
Aunt
sorry.
Lydia, yeah, is like, don't worry, everything's okay. You are, and she calls him Charlie, the daughter's name. And then she puts a crown on his head and says, "You are Haman, the king, one of the kings of hell, and we're serving you. We have corrected your female body, and we have now put you inside of your preferred male host." And they all start shouting, "Hail Paimon!" And that is the end of the movie.
And that's the end.
Oh
and
my
then,
God.
And then Hereditary 2 coming to a theater near you is Paimon gets his groove back, and it's the love story about how he finds love and happiness in his life after finally being brought back into a male body.
One of the queens of hell gets like a new like female body, and they like hook up together.
Yeah.
It's like Dirty Dancing demon style. He like lifts her up in the air.
Dirty demon dancing. Yeah, it'd be perfect.
I can't wait. Hereditary 2 coming to a theater near you.
Hereditary 2.
Aster, call us up and we'll collaborate with you on this.
Well, you know what we'll do is we'll get the twins from Talk to Me to work on it. Like they'll
smash it.
Yeah. I forget their names, but it's somewhere in my notes.
So what did you think about this whole thing?
Well, so first of all, I thought about some of this before, but as you were retelling it, like when we talked about Talk to Me vibes, so it is really kind of funny because, so first of all, you got the brother and the little sister thing. They go to a party, something bad happens to the younger sibling. Very Talk to Me, very different, but very Talk to Me.
Yeah.
And then, and then something even worse happens, right? Because they're driving, right? And that happens. And then you have like the seance thing with the candle. There's a seance involved to bring spirits back. Very Talk to Me. The half possessed banging his head on the table thing. Again, feels very similar to that scene with the kid that they definitely took up 5 levels and Talk to Me. But it is interesting that there were some notable parallels, and not that it was that one, that Talk to Me was copying this by any means. I just think that because of similarity in like in demons and possession and stuff, they both utilized effective ways to make the audience say, "Oh,
yeah." I did peruse an article recently that was talking about now Hereditary came out 2018, before Midsommar, which we'll talk about, and before Talk to Me, which we recently did.
Right.
But this article was talking about there's many elements of Hereditary which like are inspired by or reflect other like horror icons, and I don't have a great list of them, but there's one fun fact I could share with you.
Okay.
But the article, I saw this note in a couple of different places where they said Ari Aster really does a nice job of like paying homage to different like horror tropes. And it's on, and on one hand, it's like, it was written as a complaint, like, oh man, he's just copying all these other movies. But on another hand, it was written as like a cool, like, oh, that's interesting. That's cool how you incorporated certain elements from different things and like recreated it in your film. So I don't know. I guess you could look at it from either angle.
Well, I kind of feel like, we just, we did Nosferatu not that long ago. And I think everything that we know about horror today is built off of horror of the past.
Yeah.
So whether or not it's at the front of, we could go down this rabbit hole, right? Like AI generates stuff based off of all the stuff that went before it. And so it's there whether we see it or not. So I think it's an art to be able to craft it in like intelligently and have it not be just a copy paste, right? Like, like if you take something else and you paste it in, but I think if you can artistically make it like fold into your story smoothly, then I think that that's mastery, kind of, right? Like,
I liked it. I liked
that
that there was like, there were things that I recognized, like the scene where she's like up in the ceiling. You know what I mean? Like
they always, And so the ceiling crawling thing, like that is that Evil Dead Rise. When I saw it, I was like, "Yep, crawling ceiling on the wall in the background."
Did The Exorcist have any of that? I can't remember.
But
like,
probably not.
People where they don't belong, like in corners of the ceiling.
People where they don't belong, and stuff in the background, right? Like where it's fuzzy in the background, and because she was up there in the wall, and like if you
She was up
weren't
there
paying
for a
attention,
minute.
you might not see her.
Oh, I
Yeah,
saw
she was there
her.
for a
The
minute.
first time I was like,
Oh, yeah.
she's up there. But that
Yeah, I
actually,
saw her
I kind
too.
of liked how I thought she was going to jump down immediately. But no, they
Yep.
kept her up there for a minute. And actually, she didn't jump down from up there. She came from the
No,
corner.
she came out of the shadows.
Yeah.
And that honestly, that was big jump scare of the movie for me.
Yeah, same.
Like that, when she came out, jumped out of my seat, and I floated for a while. I did not try to saw my own head off like she did, but I floated for a while and then came back down. So you asked me what I thought, and I hinted on it a little bit. So I thought overall great movie. I think, like I said, in the middle section. So to be perfectly honest, we were preparing for a visitor in the house, and like I was watching it midday.
Yeah,
and I had a lot of chores to get done. And
I just got
so
chills. I just got chills thinking about the movie.
I thought you had chills
Real
thinking
chills?
about me doing chores.
Oh no.
But like I paused it mid movie and I went and washed, cleaned all the windows around the house because they just need to be cleaned. Yeah. But the middle, I did find it just kind of slowed down, and I was just kind of like, oh, okay, it's just plugging along. It didn't really like have me on the edge of my seat, but then it picked back up at the end. But the movie was pretty long. I think it probably could have been a little bit shorter. But the stuff in the middle wasn't useless. You know, there was a lot of just like eerie stuff with all the little miniatures and like the miniatures. And that was one of the things that was interesting about this movie is like all the miniature scenes kind of give you a little bit more education on the story or education on her mom, like trying to breastfeed her child, or like the like weird little other stuff that just provided an extra sense of eeriness to it.
Yeah. Well, what I like this, so this movie came out before Midsommar, but what you just said about it was slow and it was long, I kind of felt that sense from Midsommar as well. He like really kind of drug things out, like building the tension and this this persistent question of like, what is going on? What is happening here? And
that is true. Yeah.
I didn't particularly like that in The Shining for some reason. The Shining also felt like really long and really slow. But I think the difference is with these two films, and having read about the way Ari Aster works, is it's like a very rich background. There's a lot of like detail in the story. Like there's a lot of like depth. And I read that, like, as an example, he had full biographies and backstories on all of the characters before he even wrote the screenplay, which
that's impressive.
We don't necessarily know all of that, but he has put so much thought into like world building.
People are.
Yeah. And so he's able to like stuff the story full of like little bits and pieces and nuggets, and like it may not necessarily mean something to us on the surface, but I think it makes it, in comparison to The Shining, which just felt like, oh God, we're just staring at the wall for forever. These stories, I think, are a little bit more, I don't know, like compelling. I'm drawn into them.
They're just like, they're deeper. Like, there's a deeper, like, it feels more rich. Rich
exactly.
with background and story.
Yes.
It's interesting. I would love to watch a bunch of Ari Aster movies like back to back to back, because I also did note, and this could just be me seeing stuff that's not really there, but just kind of the framing of the shots. And sometimes we cut to just a big, wide open still shot, or like they're at the funeral with the mountains in the background, or sometimes the way the camera just sweeps in on a scene. Like it felt familiar, like Midsommar, like maybe that's kind of in his directing style. Again, I haven't seen so many movies of his to really pick up, and I'm not one to be like, oh, I recognize a director.
Sure.
But there felt like some similarities there. Yeah. One of the things that I and this is kind of an A24, maybe Ari Aster thing, but like we talked about the music in the movie. Yeah. Did you catch like the pulsing music in the background?
Oh,
so like
no.
Now again, so I always watch with my headphones, right? And so it wasn't going the whole movie, but it was going for the majority of the opening. There was this pulsing, like woo, woo, woo,
oh
woo,
yeah,
woo,
oh
woo,
yeah,
woo.
yeah.
And sometimes it was quiet, sometimes it was loud.
Yeah.
When there was music, like at the party, when Peter's at the party, there was music at the party, but the pulsing was behind the music, so it was like still there.
Yeah,
it was like two layers of like background sound effects. And there were other times where it was just like background music to build tension, but then the pulsing behind it. And then like she hits her head on the pole, pulsing stops.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's just but then it comes back later, and so it was very much just like a tool to like
Well, it's like there's
to
something
control.
happening there. It's like there's something alive. There's something
Yeah.
like, and the same thing with those like flashes of light. Do you remember those like very subtle, but it was like very supernatural? There'd be like a flash of light that would like fly across the room. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, it was like
Yeah, I was
it
like,
felt very. Have you ever seen Donnie Darko? It reminded me of that.
no.
But it was almost like the way the spirit would like try to like get them to look in a direction or guide lead them a little bit.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. But yeah, I felt the pulsing thing's kind of genius because I think that I think that it's like it's kind of like if you just put it on and then our body adjusts to it and almost like we don't know it's there, right? Because it's just in the background.
Right.
And then by increasing it, you're like causing our attention to rise, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is what the background does, but that's why it was going on. And that's why putting it behind the music and having it kind of always there.
Yeah.
And then when it stops, it's like complete silence.
It's like he's biohacked us or something. He's like, figured
exactly
out how to get our bodies to react at a physiological level to what we're seeing, hearing.
Yeah.
100%.
That's what it felt like.
You know what else was genius? And this, I think I jumped at this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a very simple, just like there's nothing inherently insidious or evil about that sound. But because he
just added.
And when she was driving, when the mother was driving and she hears it after her daughter's dead, I was like, oh, shit. Like, why is that so terrifying?
And it's like, there's obviously the girl's already eerie. But just by taking that one, her click sound.
Right.
Now, because it's her and she dies, now all you got to do is like throw that in and you're like, oh,
yes,
she's here.
Yes.
Or at the very end when Peter's walking and he does it too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the closest thing that we've had like that in a prior movie was in not Paranormal Activity, The Conjuring with the double clap.
Yeah,
it's just a little double clap. There's nothing scary about clapping your hands twice until they've made it a thing. Obviously there was nobody in the stairwell with her, but
true.
Yeah.
But yeah. One random note while we're talking about Charlie's things, I don't know. This is just whatever, but like I wrote down Charlie and the Chocolate Diet because it's like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh yeah.
Because all she ate was chocolate. She was either eating M&Ms or chocolate bars. She's like cutting a head off a bird, eating a chocolate bar.
Oh,
that explains so much though, because in her soul was this demon god, and so obviously there was something about the headlessness was a theme for the cult, because they cut the heads off the grandmother and the mother.
Right.
She was cutting heads off birds, but that's because she was deep down in there. She was this god. Her head then gets decapitated, which is interesting. So I don't know if you caught this. So there's a symbol on the necklace that her grandmother wore, right? Now you see that symbol in other places.
The telephone pole.
When they were driving to the party, did you see that the wood pole had that symbol on it?
Yes, and I didn't piece all of this together, I don't think, until after the movie. I mean, like until I was like reading about it and talking about it. All of the clues were there, but I didn't fully understand that the cult had like orchestrated all of this.
Yeah, I think somehow they were, and they're obviously, they can sway stuff a little bit spiritually because, however they're doing it, but somehow they crafted it where he was going to swerve around. I don't know. Like there's a little bit of like how did that just work just so perfectly?
Yeah. Yeah.
A little bit of, spiritual magic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the themes here is as I'm watching this, at first I'm thinking like, these are just unfortunate accidents that are happening.
Yeah.
It wasn't until after the whole movie had ended that I was like, hold up. None of that was an accident. All of that was like planned and orchestrated by this cult. And if you remember, this is a cool connection, actually. I'm going to jump to one of my fun facts.
Okay.
When Peter, the son, is at school, they're discussing the idea of escaping fate. That's what like is written on the chalkboard. That's the thing that they're discussing.
Oh, interesting.
Which is like what's happening in this movie is like, has their fate already been kind of laid out for them and now it's just happening? But also that was, if you remember in the movie Halloween, the original Halloween from 1978, which we did an episode on, that
Yeah.
is what they were discussing in their class, was like fate and trying to escape fate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, nice little
Yeah, I
connection
didn't catch
there.
that.
Yeah,
Oh, well done. Well done, Sam.
thanks. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I didn't even honestly, I don't think I even realized that was in the original Halloween movie.
Yeah,
That's cool. I assume that was purposeful.
I'm sure that had to have been
or
a
just
nice,
or just an interesting coincidence.
yeah.
Because like obviously, he's trying to escape fate. Just just like the weird little things that, like you said at the end, that you kind of pieced it together, like when Joan's character is yelling from across the parking lot, Peter, I expel you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they're like working to get his spirit out of his body so they can put the devil demon back in it.
Yeah.
So we've talked around it a lot, but let's talk about this car scene.
Okay, all right.
Because man, it's like it's the visceral, it's the like the cringe, gut wrenching something scene of the movie
Totally.
that was so like just wonderfully executed. And remember, I've told you this, I'm sick, right? That like when I see a scene that just like hits me so hard,
Yeah.
I then have to rewind it and rewatch it. But this one, I'm like, I don't want to watch this one again. Like I did it in Talk to Me. I rewound it and I watched that whole scene again where the kid, where the brother is like possessed. But yeah, so he's driving and it's just like, again, that was the thing I remembered from this movie. I remembered very little else. I mean, it came back to me as I watched it, but I remembered that scene from the first time I watched it, in 2019 or whatever. But it's like her head hits, you hear the impact, you hear a crack, and then the music stops, and it's just fucked. And then that moment, and so that's the impact. That's what catches your attention. That's what makes you feel gross in whatever you're feeling inside. Like I can't really describe it. But then Peter stops, and this is where his that actor really just
oh yeah,
he's sitting there with this look on his face, and this is when that pulsing in the background stopped, right?
Right.
So we as the audience were just stuck there in shock. Now that pulsing that has become our comfort is gone. It's silent. He's sitting there. It's on his face, and he can't look in the rearview mirror. And then the tear comes down his face, and then he sits there for a while.
Yeah.
And then
we have
he
to
almost
sit there
says,
with him in that discomfort.
And then he almost says something he almost says Charlie, but he can't get the words out because he can't even come to any sort of realization of what's happened. So then he kind of you see his foot just kind of release off the brake, and then he drives, and he just goes home and lays in bed awake, just waiting for his world to crash because it was going to. It was just so impactful. So much unease, horrible disgust, feeling ill, made you feel
sick
ill.
To your stomach. Yes, exactly. Because the thing about this is take away all the supernatural elements of this movie, an accident like that can happen, and it's in a heartbeat, your life has just totally gone on a new trajectory. And he's in this terrible situation where it's it was an accident, but he obviously feels an enormous amount of responsibility because it's he's at this party. What if his sister hadn't even come to the party? He wasn't watching her when she ate this thing. Although this is why I was a little bit surprised that she's 13 years old. I'm you're 13 years old. You're 13 years old. You have a nut allergy and you didn't recognize this thing that had nuts in it before you ate it.
Yeah, that was a little bit. Well, especially because earlier they're does it have nuts? And she's no.
Yeah.
And so she obviously knew.
But maybe it's because she's also a demon king from hell and is I don't really want to be in this female body. So
there was a bit of she wasn't quite all there.
Right.
She wasn't quite all there.
Yeah. So something
I would have made her more 8 or 9.
Yeah.
13 just seems. Yeah.
Well, in any case,
I took her as 8 or 9. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. He's obviously feeling responsible, and he's oh, I'm out smoking weed with my friends, and it's that's not the reason why any of this happened. But he's in this terrible predicament where it's he's a teenager, doesn't know how to handle the situation. His brain is I don't know what to do next.
I don't know how to process it.
Don't know how to process this.
How does anyone process that?
Right. What am I supposed to do? And it's like it's really easy to sit there and watch and be like, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to go look and see what's going on. Okay, you need to recognize the fact that okay, you need to call 911. Okay, but like he just can't. He just like cannot think like an adult.
Yeah.
And just knows that like I guess my life is over now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think that it connects to, many conversations, I've had about like, what do you think in this situation, or what would you, what would you think about? And I think that that's what made it such a good scene, is that they didn't make him do any sort of like, oh, jump in the back seat and oh my God, Charlie, nothing. Like, he just froze and didn't know how to be a human, and so he just didn't. He was like, I just don't know what to do right now. He couldn't bring himself to look.
Right.
So he just, even later on, they hinted at like when he was in class and he would look, if he looked up to the corner, he in his mind was still seeing a rearview mirror. Right. Because he was haunted by the scene in the back seat that he couldn't look at.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what was so powerful about that, is that it's something that could happen to any one of us on any given day. You're driving down the street and some freak accident happens, and now you're trying to process and figure out how to handle that. And that is insanely terrifying. It's terrifying.
So that's scene number 1 for me. That was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Scene number 2. Can you guess? I think I hinted at it when you were talking about it.
The slicing, when she uses the wire to like slice off her head.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes. You hear it and you're like, at first you're like, what are we hearing?
You hear it.
What is that?
Yes.
And then you see it and you're like,
oh my God.
Gross.
You hear the slicing sound, which is perfectly tuned to be the wrong pitch and sound. You hear, it's like you can hear the thread hitting the bone, and then she's looking, and then the blood squirting, and he jumps out the window and you can still hear it. His jumping away, it doesn't get away from it. And then you hear her head hit the ground.
Yes.
Yes. That was, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that was, when we talk about the Stephen King scale, right? Gross out, terror, horror, it was all there because the gross out was there. And then you see it happening and you're processing it and you're like, oh God, like that is the horror, right? Like you're seeing it and it's just like unbelievable. And then when he dives out the window and you can still hear it, that's the terror. Now your imagination, like you're still seeing it. They turned it off, but your head is still seeing it because you're hearing it.
Right.
It was,
I think I'm learning that
hell.
Like unwillful self-harm is really hard to watch. When he's banging his head on the desk and talk to me when she's like, or what is it? The little boy's like slamming his face into objects. And that is it's just really gruesome. I mean, it's hard enough when someone else is doing something gruesome to another human, but when it's like self-inflicting, it's just,
and you're out of control.
Freaky.
Like you yourself.
Yeah.
Like someone else is controlling you.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's
gruesome. It's gruesome.
Yeah.
Well, and then what I thought was makes me think of Midsommar a little bit, is after she chops her head off and then he gets reanimated, he goes to the cabin, and now in the cabin it's like bright and like there's this like shining music with like bells and it's harmonious and it's like, oh, and it made me think of the end of Midsommar, where it's the same thing. They light the shed on fire, and then it's this like beautiful like violins playing, and she's got her flower crown, and everything is like harmonious, and which is so bizarre for the end of like a horror movie. I mean, I guess that's what makes it horror. Is it's like they took what was supposed to be weird and freaky and messed up, and they said, we've like contacted, like we have now saved our like demon king of hell and we're worshiping him and like everything is wonderful. It's just so weird.
But everything is wonderful for no one except for the people that caused all the turmoil, right? Like, so there's no satisfaction in the end. And I think the best horror movies, to be perfectly honest, the best ones are the ones that don't end with a happy ending, or maybe they end with a happy ending, but then you get a little bit of a, oh wait, no. Something at the end that's like,
it was like a happy ending for the demon.
Right. Yeah.
And
like when the bad guys win, that's kind of like, that's because horror is about feeling a certain way.
Yeah.
And if you leave feeling good, then that's fine. Like, so Evil Dead Rise, like obviously, Well, so
They
Evil Dead
escape.
Rise is a perfect example because you felt really good for the characters that won,
Right.
but then you also realized that the entity, you didn't destroy the entity; it's still out there. So that's a good balance.
Right.
But I think on the other side, but also Evil Dead Rise is very much it's a very different kind of horror movie. But one
Yeah.
like this where you're just left with like, well, shit.
And
That
it's not
sucks.
just that the demon thing wins, it's that like it doesn't end with like this shadowy doom and gloom of like dun dun
Right.
dun. It's like Midsommar ends with a smiling, beautiful girl with
Yeah.
a big smile on her face. This one ends
Yep.
with like they're like the cult is like celebrating. I mean, I guess
Right.
the son, he has a little bit of like a serious face on his face. He's no longer the
Yeah.
son at this point, but
Yeah.
so it wasn't necessarily, but it had like elements of beauty to it. The music was like harmonious and beautiful. The
Yeah.
cult was like, we're happy, we've accomplished this. So that's what's
Yeah.
that's what's so like
It's so
eerie
weird.
about it.
And at least in Midsommar, you were kind of almost like, am I happy for Danny? I think that,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
like this group of people, they did some gruesome stuff, but like,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. Here, you're just like you're like, oh, we're celebrating, but this is evil and it's a demon from hell. Yay.
But I'm also like a little bit relieved that all of the like chasing around the house is over, and like
you're
this
like, well,
suspense of the entire movie where you're like, what's going on? Like that's over. Like everything has been resolved. So there is this feeling of like, again, it's like in this case, instead of biohacking us, it's like he psyche hacked us. He like psychologically hacked us to now be like, yay, wait, am I celebrating the demon king of hell? Like,
right.
I'm not sure who I'm pulling for here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. So we've talked a lot about Midsommar. So I'm sure I'm not the only person that did this, and it's because it's Ari Aster, right? But I really was trying to dig and find some parallels. Most of what I found is that based on when he wrote one or the other, like there's no distinct parallels between it. But I did come across an article that said a couple things that Slash Film did, just saying that Hereditary was more connected to Midsommar than even Ari Aster realized. And so just a couple of points that this made. It talked about both films are about family tragedies. Okay, well, there's lots of films about family tragedies that are horror films, but how these cults slowly invade the lives of these groups until the groups become victims of the dark prophecies, right? So of course that parallels with, they're both cult movies in one way or another, although one is very possession based and one is very, burn the bear based. Also, Danny's sister commits suicide Midsommar. Charlie in Hereditary gets decapitated, so they both lose a sibling.
Right.
And that grief. So then Danny and Peter both feel somewhat responsible for the death of their siblings and their family members, and that guilt propels them into a state of mind more susceptible to the cultish behavior. So Danny obviously becomes more susceptible to becoming the Flower Queen, whereas like Peter, he starts to lose his sanity a little bit. And I think he's mentally unstable, which is kind of allowing them to push him out of his body, maybe.
Yeah. I think if I lost one of my siblings, I would most definitely be susceptible to being recruited in a cult.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
State of mind all messed up. I'm just like,
Yeah, like, because he was obviously unstable, and that's what kind of allowed them to take over. I mean, those are all pretty loose parallels, but still,
Are there any others? Are there any like tighter parallels?
No, unfortunately not.
Oh, okay.
As it turns out, Peter is Danny's cousin. I'm just kidding.
No,
no, I did do some digging, but everything kind of proved that there was no real parallels, but some some interesting ones nonetheless.
Yeah. I've got some fun facts that I can share with you about this movie. So I thought the whole like miniature dollhouse thing was like an interesting, playful thing that they used in the movie. And they did the way they constructed the sets. So all of this house was built as a set, right? They weren't just filming in somebody's house. And they did it in such a way that they could sort of make it seem like you were watching them in like a miniature situation, right?
Yeah, the way they would like zoom in and you're like, is this real? Is this not? Oh, now they zoom in and it is the scene.
Yeah. They could like move walls so they could like give you more space in between the camera and the actors, so that it seemed like you were, looking in, not like in the room with them. I think you see the very ending when they're in the treehouse. We see the treehouse sort of from afar, like we're looking in at it, right? So that was kind of a cool thing that they did.
What was her job? I mean, we know that she was a miniature artist because she was a very small artist. No, but like, is it just she was an artist and she just brought
I
her
think, yeah.
life to,
I think she's just
and
a
so
professional
she,
artist, and that's
yeah,
yeah.
and so she was going to recreate her life and put it on display, I guess, and or something. It was, yeah.
Well, do you
We don't.
remember when we went to Japan last year and we saw that miniatures display in a shopping
Oh
mall?
yeah, it
I
was at
bought a
Muji.
book.
It
Yeah.
was at Muji.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I have a book of photography of like where they took real objects, but they made like miniature things. Like it might be like a
yeah,
person like sliding down a banana peel or something, and they make it
yeah.
look like a park instead of a banana. Whatever.
Right, right, right.
That's what it made me
I
think
guess
of.
that's just like miniature cooking and like all that's like, yeah. I mean, there's a following out there, I
Which,
guess.
coming back to the whole question about like fate, is
Hmm.
where my brain went with that is it's like, are we all just like miniatures, part of a story that we're just like fated to like unfurl that somebody else, something bigger is like watching
Something
inside
else
of.
is crafting our, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are some other fun facts about this movie? So that actress, Toni Collette, doesn't
Hmm.
actually like horror movies, so we
Oh,
can relate with one
perfect.
another. So she was hesitant to do this. She's done some other horror movies like Fright Night from 2011, Krampus from 2015, which I think we almost did an episode on. Um,
We almost watched that.
but she did those because she saw them more as like dark comedies than horror films, and I think
Okay.
this one she agreed to do because of the writing and because Ari
Mm,
Aster and many members of the cast and crew saw this first and foremost as a family drama, and then secondly as a
right.
horror film.
Okay.
So I think that,
Which it seems very Ari Aster and very A24, right? Very drama heavy.
yeah, which
Which
I
is
think
why
is why it works. Is they're not
which is why
setting
we,
out.
yep.
They're
And it's why
use
we always have so much to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're using those elements to like get into your heart and mind and freak you
Yeah.
out rather than starting with like, we're just going to jump scare, we're just going to have lots of blood and gore and we're going to
Right.
use that to freak out the audience. They're like, no, we're going
Yeah.
to tap into their like
Yeah.
deepest
Which is
darkest emotions.
which all that is fun in its own right. Like I enjoy all that, of course, but like it's just different. That makes this a more compelling experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the actors who play the father, the son, and the daughter had all
Hmm.
known each other or worked together in some way. Not, I don't think all
Okay.
together, but like separately. They had known each other, worked together. So they had
Hmm.
pre-existing relationships. The only member of the family who didn't have that was the mother, which is, I don't think
Okay.
that was intentional. That's just kind of a fun fact that like
Right.
she's the one character who starts to like the whole time you're kind of like, is she losing her mind? Like, is this real? Is this not
Right.
real? She wants to
She's
go
also
say
very
this.
distant from her family and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
interesting that as a cast member, she was the only one who had not worked with the other members of the family.
It's interesting that the something about the spirit or being around the demon god or being, around the cult obviously affected the sanity, right, of the people because what was it like the
Do you
I
mean the
forget now,
actor
but
or the character?
the
Okay,
characters. So
yeah,
the queen mama lady, who
Queen
died,
Lee or whatever.
uh yeah, they had said like that her brother had like gone crazy because the
Oh,
mom, when she's at therapy, she's like everyone in her family had kind of like went crazy. She herself was sleepwalking and almost burned her children, after soaking them in paint thinner.
yeah.
So there's this whole thing surrounding it that it must
Because
like,
I think what it is, see, this is where I didn't understand it while watching the movie, and then after reading it, I was
yeah,
like, oh, I think that the matriarch of the family was trying to
yeah.
use her brother to like his body can become the new body of this
Oh,
demon king.
and it
But
just maybe
her
didn't
brother,
work.
what, he committed suicide? Isn't that what happened?
Maybe. Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah, he was like, this, my mom's crazy. I can't do this, and he like
Yeah.
ended it. And so I think it's the same thing where it's not that she's becoming her mother. I think she's kind of getting possessed and like doing these things, but like she doesn't want this. Like she clearly
Yeah.
is not trying to be part of it, but like
And there's
the
something weird in
forces are
her
greater.
bloodline because her mother, I think, was, they called her like the queen something. I think her mother was
Yeah.
also probably a recycled old entity of some sort. And so something about being in that bloodline, I think.
Again, fate.
Yeah.
Can you escape it, or is your path just like laid for you? Which with
Yeah, for
family
sure.
drama, I mean, I don't think it's like I don't think the answer is like yes or no, but with family drama, it's like, or family trauma, how much of the things that you're dealing with in your life are just being passed down to you hereditarily that you are, you know, how much of that is just like this is what you're handed and you have to work with it versus how much of it's like blank slate. I'm just here. I am showing up in the world and just finding my own path. You know, it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of like what this movie is asking is like, you know, so something that Ari Aster asked the actors to do to help them like find these characters in addition to like the biographies that he wrote. So he would like have the son and the daughter like go out to lunch or something, but like do it in character. So they would sit there for hours and the daughter would like not say anything. And the son would be like trying to get her to like open up and like talk about things. And she'd just be like, you know, like what? And so they would just like, he created these like personas and was like, just go practice being that character. Like like not on set, not scripted, just like go be that person for a little while. I think that's how he like crafts this, you know, the universe of the movie. So the last fun fact, it doesn't really have anything to do with like the making of the movie, but I read this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I can't believe this happened. So there was a trailer for Hereditary that was shown accidentally. This happened in Australia. It was shown accidentally at the beginning of a PG rated movie, Peter Rabbit.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's amazing.
So like a theater full of like kids and their parents saw the trailer to Hereditary and they panicked and the parents started like being like, we're like leaving the movie because I thought they were about to accidentally expose their kids to like some freaky R-rated like horror movie. So the theater, thankfully, obviously like shut it down and then, you know, gave all those members like a free movie pass or something to apologize.
Yes.
But can you
Something
imagine?
very similar happened to me once.
Really?
No, not really. It just reminded me of when I was seeing Black Panther in theater.
Yeah.
And I was seeing it in a very old historic like theater in Monterey. Well, it was in Pacific Grove in Monterey, California. And right after, dude throws him off the waterfall.
Yeah.
You know? And they're like, oh, is he dead? Which we know he's not because he's going to be Black Panther. But like they throw him off the waterfall. And then the screen like went black and the loudest staticky sound that was almost unbearable started going and we all had to leave because it was like hurting our ears.
Oh my God.
And they couldn't get it playing again. And they were like, oh, we'll give you a free ticket to come back later. I was like, I don't know what happened to T'Challa. Anyway.
Right after he gets thrown off the
right after he got thrown off the waterfall. I'm like, this is I was so mad I never went back to that theater again.
But did you go finish? You did see the rest of the movie.
I did go see it. Yeah.
Oh,
I went and saw it. I think I went to another theater probably next weekend or something and watched it. But it was anyway, not related at all, but it just reminded me of that.
Funny.
Horrible.
You usually expect movie theaters to be like pretty reliable. So when stuff happens like that, it's kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Those are all my fun facts. But the last thing I wanted to share with you is the fact that A24 has a online store and they have some kind of funny Hereditary related gifts that I have to share with you. I probably should have just like, you know, bought some of these for you for Christmas or your birthday or Shelly's birthday, but I didn't.
My birthday is coming, so
here's some of the fun things that A24 that you can buy from the A24 store related to this movie specifically. Yeah. So there's a screenplay book that has the screenplay in it, but it also and it's like beautifully bound and it has like obviously like imagery from the movie, and so that's kind of cool. If it's the holiday season and you're in the mood for building a gingerbread house, you can get the tree house from this movie in the form of a gingerbread house.
I mean, that's kind of amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it even comes with like the ash trees and the ladder. I don't know if it comes with like figurines on the inside of, you know, the headless,
the naked people.
People, yeah. This is just a wallpaper, like a poster, but it's like all of the craft items from Crafts by
like
Charlie.
all of her crafty stuff.
Yeah.
Crafts by Charlie.
Yeah, like
oh, that's
the
amazing.
cutting off of the head, and she had the thing where she like
Oh,
made the
does it come with a
fork.
bird's head?
Comes with a bird's head. I can't remember what she did with these things. There's like a fork and a spoon. Anyway, fun,
Yeah.
decoration for
I think
for
she's
your
just
home.
like, yeah.
There's a
Sure.
pen of the
Oh.
mother screaming, Toni Collette. Love that.
It's
There's
her head, yeah. Yeah.
puzzle of Charlie's head. It's so gross.
Oh God.
Like her
Oh,
rotting
what? This is some disturbed stuff.
Can you
Her
imagine
rotting head that you
like
can put together.
walking into someone's home and they have like half of a puzzle on their coffee table and
together.
it's like, oh, what is this? Is it a lovely, cottage scene, in the countryside? And you're like, no, it's just a rotting head. Like,
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
of course, we have some like fun T-shirts. Every
Mhm.
family tree hides secrets. We have some sweatpants, with the mother on one side and the burning father on the other side.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I think my favorite is Evil Grandma's wall calendar. No, it's
Oh,
this is from
nice.
2019.
The Evil Grandma
But-
2019 wall calendar. Sold
Yeah.
out. Mm.
It is sold out. So maybe if they come out with a 2024 version, an
Yeah.
A 2024 version.
Ooh, A 2024. They should do an A 24 calendar. We're already in 24, so I
Yeah.
mean it's a little bit late on that one, but
That's all right. So yeah, some fun stuff you
Interesting.
can go explore in the A24 store. Other movies as
Yeah.
well, but those were just some of the Hereditary items.
if we could just get A24 to sponsor us, then that would be great. We should definitely be tagging them in every single like post or something.
Yeah, we should.
Because we talk them up a lot because we like them, not because they're paying us yet.
Yeah. The only last thing I'll say, the fun thing about Ari Aster, so he even when he was young, he was really interested in becoming like an author, writing screenplays, and getting to where he is now. He's in his late 30s,
Sure.
by the way. This
Okay.
movie, Hereditary, was his first feature film, followed by Midsommar. But he had done other like
Okay.
short films, which maybe at some point we could go look those up and watch them.
Mhm.
But he was obsessed with horror movies as a child. I might be putting words in his mouth. I don't know if he was obsessed, but
Okay.
I read somewhere that he did like rent out every horror movie at the video store and like couldn't get enough of them. So you guys would probably be BFFs and have a lot to talk about.
I mean, we probably would be. I'm gonna shoot him an email. I'm gonna shoot him an email and be like, "What's up, Ari? Let's be friends."
Let's be friends.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Hey, Ari Aster, if you're listening to this, come on the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, come be our guest. I don't know why I was gonna start singing Beauty and the Beast songs. Anyway.
Well, why don't we choose the next movie for our next episode?
I would love to, but first,
we got to rank this one.
What would you rate it? I know what I wrote down.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this pretty high. Like I'm like right there in between a 9 or a 10. I could really.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty high.
It's pretty high for me, I think, and you could probably piece this together by this point. But the fact that it's like very like emotionally based, it's all about like family dynamics and family relationships. The fact that the sibling trauma, the accidents that happen in the movie could be things that just happen in real life, and that's like horrifying and traumatizing. And the idea that like, what if there's a cult somewhere who just so happens to be actually communicating with one of the kings of hell, and they're like laying a path for me to just, I'm not even in control of my own life. I'm just being manipulated by this cult. I think all that's
it would actually
terrifying.
make a lot of sense. It would make a lot of sense
for how my life is going right now.
Yeah,
they're like, you're gonna start a podcast about scary movies and watch every scary movie that's ever been created.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that would imply that I'm involved,
part of the cult. Next thing I know, you're going to be like,
getting you taken.
Should we just do like a little seance? Let's just do a little seance. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah. No big deal. No big deal. I let you in.
Talk to me. So I'll give it
you say like a 9. You say like
let's just
10,
round it up.
10
Let's give it a 10. I think it earns a 10.
Oh, this is a 10. So this is on the level with The Conjuring.
Yeah.
Which that's fair. I might maybe I lowballed this one. So I said probably like a 6.
Okay.
I found those two scenes super impactful. I said 6 question mark because I was a little bit like, is it maybe 6 or 7? I also noted like the first 30 minutes and the last 30 minutes. And then I said like the middle hour, like a 4. Cause that like slow burn part. But again, I was preoccupied. But yeah, so that's good. We're we're keeping up with the episode 12 Scary Movie. I don't think it was episode 12 last season, but it was right around the same time where you found a nice tinner.
Yeah.
Gotta build which leads me into the subject of episode 13 for the season and what we're going to be watching.
Here we go.
Hey, if you're enjoying Scary Movie Fright Night, hit pause real quick, rate, review, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And now, back to the episode. So, theme for next episode, found footage.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yep. So in the theme of, paranormal activity, I thought, well, we haven't circled back to found footage again, and there's a lot out there. So here we are. Are you ready to hear the first one?
I'm ready.
As provided by ChatGPT, it's going to make it sound way more fun than the actual experience. First movie. Prepare to be engulfed in a chilling tale of suspense and mystery. Picture a dense, ancient forest where the trees whisper secrets and the shadows seem to dance to an eerie melody. Join our fearless documentarians, armed with nothing but their cameras as they navigate the haunting wilderness in search of an elusive enigma. Brace yourself for an intimate, spine-tingling experience that will leave you questioning the shadows in your own backyard.
Wow.
Sound fun?
I love how like the trees like whisper to each other like they're ents, from Lord of the Rings.
Exactly.
Just come alive and help you in your battle against, good versus
It's like
evil.
A dance of the forest or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Making this up as I go, but
Yeah. Okay, what's number 2?
Okay, number 2. Brace yourself, thrill seekers, for a pulse-pounding plunge into the heart of the unknown. Imagine a building where the walls whisper eerie tales, the shadows play an ominous game of hide and seek, and the air itself is charged with spine-tingling suspense. Our intrepid heroes are on a mission to capture the raw intensity of their journey through a labyrinth of fear. As they navigate the twists and turns, you'll be gripped by the relentless suspense and hair-raising encounters. It's a cinematic roller coaster where every corner hides a new twist, and every frame is a snapshot of heart-stopping horror. It's actually kind of funny. These are less joyous than some of the previous ones.
Yeah.
But I'm just still reading them like they're joyous. It's fine.
Oh, this one, I'm like, I heard all of that and I'm like, well, I don't know what it's about. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, the downside of me saying, ChatGPT, give me a theme that's joyous and fun without giving away the plot is that I've noticed that sometimes we actually don't know
what the movie's about.
What these movies are about. Also, for found footage, it's a little bit difficult too because it's like found footage and you don't want to give away too much.
Right. This genre or this theme specifically it's challenging to like explain what the plot is in advance, I think. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, were there just a couple keywords that you can give me from that one that helps me understand it?
No, there's really nothing I can give you.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
The people go into a building. That's the labyrinth of fear they journey through because they have their camera, their footage that they're filming.
Yeah.
They navigate through a building based on me doing a quick look up the actual synopsis. And they encounter some stuff and there's some fun, bad, evil times.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Is that helpful? Probably not.
Not a ton, but that's okay. Let's hear the third one and then we'll make a judgment call.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So third one. Step right up for a heart-pounding, gravity-defying journey into the unknown. Picture a house where the floors creak with excitement, the furniture dances to an otherworldly beat, and even the dust bunnies have a mischievous sparkle. Join our fearless protagonists as they embark on a wild ride through the supernatural, dodging invisible giggles and outsmarting mischievous spirits. It's a ghostly symphony of laughter, chills, and unexpected surprises that will leave you questioning whether your home is harboring a secret dance party of its own.
Okay, I'm going to make this quick. Because I'm going to make a quick judgment call. I think the first one is probably the Blair Witch Project, given that it's in the forest and it is like that's like the classic found footage thing.
I mean, if I would offer that one up.
If that's true, if you're including it. And so that's what my gut tells me. And part of me is like, well, you should probably pick that because that's like just classic found footage. It was kind of wasn't it like, it was one of the first ones?
It was like the first, yeah.
It was the first. It came before Paranormal Activity.
Yeah. And it did come before Paranormal Activity. I think when we did that episode, there was like some found footage style media before that. But that was like the one that made it big.
But here's what I'm going to do. In true horror movie fashion, I'm going to do the unexpected. I'm going to throw a little bit of chaos into the mix. I have no idea what numbers 2 and numbers 3 are. I can't even begin to guess.
Yeah,
number 2 sounds a little lackluster to me. I just don't understand. They're in a building and it's a scary labyrinth. Okay, that's fine.
Sure.
Number 3 talked about a dance party with glistening dust bunnies.
I knew the dance party would have you.
I mean, again, I don't actually know what this movie is about, but I'm going to pick it because it sparked my interest, and I want to throw a little chaos into the mix. So, what movie is number 3?
So the first one was Blair Witch Project. I think that the only time we're going to get you to watch this is we're just going to do a wild card one-off where at some point you're going to have to watch it, because as soon as we say found footage and it's in the forest, like there was no way to not make it the Blair Witch.
Well,
like,
you were
going to figure that
I'm not purposefully trying to avoid it. I do think we should watch it at some point, but I'm trying to.
We should.
I want to mix things up a little bit.
And we already got a taste of Blair Witch with The Ritual anyway. So
yeah.
But this was most interesting when we talk about a reach back to last season, because the movie you selected is Paranormal Activity 3.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, man.
So there's a reason I went with 3.
Okay.
I did some looking up. Some people had told me that they love all of them, and I was looking at all of them, and some people, because they don't necessarily. Paranormal Activity 2, I think, is a continuation of the story of the first one, and what happens after that, because she survives, right? It's like it's a continuation. I think I haven't seen any of the sequels of the theatrical ending, which I believe is the same ending we watched. But when I was looking at all the paranormal, there's like 6 or something or 7 of them. I was like, what is the scariest ones? And a lot of people said 2 was fine, 3 was like the better, like scarier of the sequels. And then I started looking like, do I have to watch 3? Well, you don't.
You mean you have to watch 2 before 3?
No, you don't. And the reason is because they don't go in numerical order, right? So it's like watching all the Marvel movies. Do you watch them in the order they were released, or in order of like actual year time frame?
Yeah.
So Paranormal Activity 3 is actually a prequel to the first one.
Got it. Okay.
Because remember, the spirit had been following her whole life. And so it's her when she was a kid with like her sister and like some childhood experiences.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Okay.
So anyway, so yeah, Paranormal Activity 3
nice.
Came out in 2011, directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman, written by Christopher Landon and Oren Peli, Peli, starring Chloe Zinguri, Jessica Tyler Brown, and Christopher Nicholas Smith. So of note, the one of the writers wrote and directed the original. So there is a bit of a connection there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So here we go. A little found footage, a little Paranormal Activity. Paranormal guys watching some Paranormal Activity yet again.
Here we go. Let's do it.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us today, where we broke down Hereditary, talked about family drama and family trauma. I coined that, even though that was something you said. Go to Apple, follow us there. Go to Spotify, follow us there. Then head to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Just subscribe in all places. Then go watch Paranormal Activity 3, and then tune in next episode on Scary Movie Fright Night.
We'll see you then. Do you think if somebody made a found footage film, but it was in 2024, that it would just be like Gen Z, like on Snapchat or something, with like TikTok or Instagram filters? Everything's like sparkly and like shiny.
I mean, probably, but then the movie would only be like 30 to 45 seconds long.
Yeah, true.